what's up guys? Node Investor here. Coming back from the weekend, taking a look at the chart, see where we are at with Bitcoin, what's moving today. We'll take a quick look at IOTA, getting some news on a potential deal, kind of a test really with Jaguar Land Rover, but really giving it a pretty nice little pump here in the last day. One of the only names really moving today for the most part. Everything's still under pressure, and so we'll take a quick look at that here. Looking at the coin market cap before we get going on the charts here, you can see the BTC dominance continues to climb, again getting very close to that 55% Bitcoin dominance versus the alts, as most names continue to underperform Bitcoin, especially the larger cap names. Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum just really pulling in more on a percentage basis than Bitcoin has been pulling in here over the last couple of days, and so that is translating into this steady slow climb on the BTC dominance. Looking at the BTC charts here first, couple of levels to point out here. This blue line on the chart is that 5K psychological support, but has also been support here on multiple attempts on these pullbacks. You can see this last couple of days ago, April 11th, April 15th here was pullback on these, or excuse me, was support on these pullback attempts. Again, we had that big move up into that $5,600 level, which again was that resistance level that we were looking at. And since then, just has really been in this pullback mode and still looking under pressure. Again, this big red candle here, let's zoom in a little bit. This was the Tether Bitfinex day where the New York Attorney General came out with that news. We saw that drop here. I did a live stream on Friday. Still hadn't seen much of a bounce here. And over the weekend, not a lot has changed really. You can see just big resistance level that just continues to remain in place. And so in the near term, the level to be watching on the upside is basically just above $5,200 on the Coinbase exchange. There is some disparity showing up again as the Tether US dollar parity has been under pressure since that day where the news broke. And so in the near term, a close above 5,200 would begin to look a little bit more positive, but still under pressure for the most part in the big picture. So even if it does get above this level, I'm going to expect to see some pretty good resistance going into that $5,370 to $5,400 level on the upside. Again, there's going to be a lot of work to be done to negate that big selling pressure day that just continues to be in place. And keep in mind, even before that news broke, I had just published a video talking about the momentum had been slowing, the upside momentum, and that we were potentially going to see some downside pressure, and that's really what's been happening. Yes, the news may have been a catalyst, may have already been factored in, who knows, but at the end of the day, the charts were already signaling a momentum loss. That just kicks things off. The alts were already lagging for several days, had been a little bit of a leading indicator that we were going to maybe see some more downside, and sure enough, we're still seeing that. So for the most part, I remain defensive. I'm going to take it slow from any long side trades. The only thing to be looking at for me today is IOTA, but other than that, on the way up, just going to be patient, let things play out, let a good support level be established, and then look for some upside follow through. But for now, looking like this may be testing that 5K level again, so still below these key moving averages, and until we can break above, got to give the downside pressure the benefit of the doubt. Below this 5K line, and again, you could see a quick spike that bounces up, that would be positive, but if it breaks below that, then the next level I'm watching is around that $4,800 mark on the BTC USD pair. If we look at it from the USD Tether side, look at something like Binance or Bitfinex or something, it looks a little bit different, and the price point is different. Right here it's 52.30 already, with the resistance level being closer to 53.40, and again, that's just because of that disparity that you're seeing on the Tether USD side. If you go to the Kraken exchange, you can see that here. This was the Bitfinex drop, and it broke that dollar parity, went as low as 95.5 cents before bouncing off the lows. Here we're seeing a little bit of recovery, still around 98 cents, so still a 2% difference, and you're seeing that translate across the different exchanges that use dollars versus tethers, or other fiats versus tether equivalents. So just something to make note of here. So for now, I'm just going to be watching that USD exchange rate on Coinbase or Bitstamp or something along those lines, just to kind of neutralize this effect that you're seeing here because of the tether difference. Looking at IOTA, and of course I'm going to be using Tether for IOTA. I'll look at it on Binance here. But looking at IOTA, did see a very nice move off the lows here. This was a quick reversal of this trend that's really been in place. I mean, IOTA for the most part had been looking pretty weak here, and even before the news broke, the downside was really starting to accelerate, and so definitely was not setting up for any sort of signal that it was maybe ready to reverse or break out. Again, this was just some news that came out, really juiced things up, especially in light of really not a whole lot going on in the market to the upside right now, and some very nice volume came in here. You can see well above average. Quick spike upward, is seeing a little bit of resistance, kind of consolidating here right now. So let's look at a few levels to be watching on the upside if this continues to show some follow through. So what I'm really looking at here is, let's go to the daily chart here. First off, the daily chart is just still very bearish, and this first day off the lows is kind of barely getting prices above this moving average pair. So just something to make note of. If it continues higher, there's going to be some major resistance going at this level. And again, this is the IOTA BTC pair, by the way. So looking at the BTC pair, this is going to be some major resistance going into that 7,000 level on the BTC side, and anywhere between here and there, right? So the next level above that, maybe 6,700 or so. If we go to the USD side, Binance for that here, just so a little bit of consistency on that angle. And if we look at the USD side, I've already got the line marked out here, right around that 32-cent mark. There was previously resistance here. You can see how many times this has tested it. There's a big wick there, a couple of attempts here, an attempt here, finally got back above, hit the target, has pulled right back below it, and today that's where we saw the pause happen on the way up. So 32-cent clearing above that could lead to some more upside. Above that, then you're looking at between 36 and 38 cents, which were the last two prior resistance levels on the way up. So that's something to be making note of here. It is consolidating. You could argue this is a little bit of a bullish consolidation, holding above the 10 EMA, just letting things digest this big move. It is pretty wide here. If we zoom into the 30-minute chart, you can see argument for maybe a little bit of a double top, but ideally you just want to let things sit tight here. So if it starts to consolidate here at this level, as long as it holds above that 29-cent level, that's going to look positive. Ultimately, you got to see it get back above 32 cents to show some upside continuation. So that's what I'm going to be watching on IOTA. Really the only name I'm looking at from the long side. There's a few that you could argue, hey, are a little bit oversold here. Maybe you get a little bit of a bounce. Litecoin is one I'm watching here, but just watch the trend here. I mean, it's very easy to see. The trend is very much downward. Let me clear these lines. These were these rising trends that had previously been broken to the upside, but you know, just very clear to see the trend is still downward, making a series of lower lows, lower highs, and so many names just have that pattern right now. And it's usually best to just wait for a clear reversal instead of trying to guess the lows, trying to buck the trend, because you're not, you know, going with any momentum. It's always better to be from a trading perspective. It's always better to be going with the wind to your back, going with the trend, the broader uptrend. And right now, they're not there. Now, ETH is one I'm watching here. It is finding a little bit of support around that $150 mark. See if it could double bottom here and maybe start to bounce. But again, the bigger picture, this looks like it's rolling over. Bitcoin Cash, big top on that one, has been pulling in as well. Not a lot of resistance, or excuse me, not a lot of support on the way down, because this big move up through 150 up to around that 260 level was very quick, with very few pauses along the way. And so since it's broken below that 260 level, it tried to get back above here a few days ago, and it's just really rolling over here and continuing to trend lower. And like many other names, you can see the broader trend is still very much downward. The overall macro trend, at least for the last week or so, has been to the downside. So until that changes, gotta remain cautious or look for short opportunities on the downside. And I'm just looking for bounces into moving averages, bouncing into resistance, and when it looks like it starts to stall out, then looking at short entries there. And again, on the short side, those are generally quick trades. And when I say quick, at least for me, you know, a day or two max. I generally won't sit on a short side for a broader swing trade, much like would on a long side. When I'm trading long, you know, I'm a little bit more patient, willing to hold trades a little bit longer. On the downside, you know, when it spikes lower, I just kind of book gains into that momentum to the downside and then wait for things to reset a little bit. So going back to BTC here again, just going to sit tight, be patient here today, watch how this plays out over the next day or two. I don't expect it's just going to go sideways in this range for the next few days. That's usually not the way it works. It will generally resolve itself one way or the other. If we go to that daily chart here, let me clear these real quick. You can see that the broader trend is under pressure right now. Looks like it may be starting to turn here. Still holding above this 22 EMA on the daily chart. Again, this is several days in a row. It's poked below it a few times, but on a closing basis, hasn't closed below it yet. But right now, the pressure still looks like it's to the downside. One could argue this is a little bit of a bear pennant that's starting to form here on this consolidation following that Bitfinex news, and it's going to look like maybe some trend continuation to the downside once this resolves. So that's what I'm going to be watching. I'm leaning bearish for now. Going to just remain defensive until we see some more buying pressure really start to show up, or we break lower, hit that next target to the downside, and then maybe I'll be looking for a potential bounce from there. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Just wanted to share that news. If you haven't already seen it, there are several articles out there. This even made CNBC, and so I'll post a link to this particular article here talking about the Jaguar Land Rover partnership with the IOTA Foundation and how they plan on using that, and really just kind of centers around the whole Internet of Things. Autonomous vehicles is a big part of that, so the kind of the vision that many of these automakers are looking at. And it's kind of cool to see, cryptocurrency being used as one of those technologies that will enable, data sharing, machine-to-machine payments, and all kinds of really neat stuff that's really in the work right now. Probably a long ways out from an infrastructure perspective, but it's certainly moving in that direction. And IOTA, by definition, just by the name, if you go to their website and see what they're trying to do, and it's kind of a good fit for this because they're very much in that Internet of Things space, and they're trying to build protocols that will support that. And so this is kind of just one of those use cases that we could potentially see come to light here with cryptocurrency involved and a lot of these IoT and blockchain based technology. So go check that out if you haven't. I'll put a link to it again, and we'll see how things go over the next few days. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.